Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Hello, everyone. I wanted to speak about power levels, and even though there's a lot happening today, it's a busy day for me, but I thought I'd record a lecture. you know, last night I spoke about how I spoke about how beauty is the teacher of power. That at some point, the peak of the evolution of power will realize it is missing what beauty has access to. In other words, being beautiful beings, not per se physically, or just saying an awareness that is focused on beauty, will access superior realities than a reality that has power. Because there's the notion of what is even beautiful power, the emergence of both ideas. However, for today's episode, I want to zoom in on power. And pretty much, there's this show I used to see as a kid called DBZ. And what the idea of it was that there were characters in this show that would reach their limits, but then they would push beyond their limits and they would achieve way more advanced power levels. Right now, we're looking at reality. Of course, we're not in some fictional universe. At least to ourselves, we consider that. And right now, in reality, human beings have different power levels, based on your physical size, based on your skills, based on your ability to communicate. So, pretty much in this lecture, I'm wondering about what are the power levels to a human being. Now, I've also prepared for you a research component here. I'm going to read something for you. It's something that I asked AI. And before this, I want to tell you that in this show, DBZ, there's two main characters, okay? There's one character named Goku, one character named Vegeta. Vegeta is the embodiment of ego. Goku is the embodiment of heart. Okay, so pretty much the writers were kind of genius, you know. And now in the show, Vegeta is a character that's always a step behind of Goku. Okay, and the reason is because Vegeta has an ego, because his life story has made him have to hold on to his pride for his identity. But anyways, in this show, in DBZ Super, there's a level of advancement this character gets, and in the show, anytime the character advances, his hair color changes, and his aura changes. Similarly, in this show, this character is in some game between. Honestly, conceptually, it's a very fascinating narrative. Let me actually take the time to explain this to you. So in DBZ Super, the most strongest beings from all the universes are in this game of the gods, in the game of the gods of destruction, and these higher beings called angels. Now, this character Goku, which is from one universe, and these universes are fighting for their lives because on some level, if they lose, their universe is erased. So in this show, this character Goku, which is an honest kind of fool, but at the same time, you know, a very advanced being, he attains this state called ultra instinct. He attains the state called ultra instinct. And what that state is a state that he knows what to do. It's like his soul knows what to do prior to his mind and body. Okay, it's anyways, it's an interesting show, guys. It's all about power levels, noticing your limits and surpassing them, and reaching a state of a sort of ultimate clarity. Anyways, to continue, I'm going to read this AI passage for you. The path to power, how a modern human becomes ultra instinct. There comes a time in every era when a being rises, not to conquer the world, but to outgrow it. In 2025, that being is not a warrior from another planet, but a human, a man or woman standing quietly in their room, heart pounding with clarity, body humming with energy, spirit tuned to something higher. This is not fantasy. This is the awakening of multidimensional power and the modern equivalent of Goku going Super Saiyan and ascending into Ultra Instinct. But unlike anime, where glowing hair and screams fill the sky, the real human ascension is inwardly electric, biologically measurable, and spiritually undeniable. You don't just power up your body, you ignite your entire being. Part 1, the 7 realms of human power in 2025. This is ChatGPT 4.0, guys. Today's June 23rd, 2025, 12:39 p.m. Toronto, Canada. So, the 7 realms of human power. You're not a single source of power. You are 7 realms, each with their own expression, system, and potential. 1, you have cognitive power, the mind. The force of focus, memory, problem solving, creativity, and mental clarity. When activated, thoughts become swords, distraction fades, your mind becomes an engine of precision. The next one is physical power. Strength, speed, energy, health, and kinetic mastery. When tuned, your body feels like a storm in stillness, alive, resilient, electric. 3, emotional power, feeling. Self-awareness, empathy, and emotional alchemy. You feel deeply and wield emotion as power, not weakness. Pain becomes presence, anger becomes intention. 4, spiritual power, soul, your alignment to truth, meaning, and higher values. This is when you become fearless, not because you're reckless, but because you're guided. 5, relational power, social field, the influence of presence, voice, leadership, and connection. When tuned, others follow you not because you try, but because you are. 6, structural power, external systems, money, law, institutions, and assets. Tools of shaping the material world. Power here means knowing how to move through the matrix with intention. 7, technological power, tools plus AI, amplification of human potential through digital intelligence, media, automation, and cybernetics. This is symbiosis with machines, not enslavement. True power is not in one domain, it is the integrity of all 7. When thought, breath, action, intention, emotion, connection, and code move as one. Now, part 2. So, guys, that was very interesting. Just to recap it. So, it's pretty much saying, all right, man, we had this fictional character called Goku. How did he advance to, like, in some sense, levels beyond his, like in some sense, what sort of power did he have? What level was his power at, and how did he increase those? How did he increase his power levels? Okay, so you as a human being right now, modern human being, not Goku from, like, a warrior species, and a Super Saiyan, Goku's kind of like Japanese, kind of Superman or something. Anyways, so where we're going with this is that so far you've been introduced to avenues. Imagine right now you have cognitive power, so you're a mental being. Now, guys, honestly, there was a prompt before this that was so much more epic. Let me try to find that and read that for you. Yeah, this is it. So these 7 realms of human power, according to AI, I mean, look at the different types of power each category has. These are like categories of power. So it says that a bit cognitive power, I'm reading, guys, so I'm rereading this, but just, it's a way more expansive view. So imagine there's 7 categories to power. You have 7 types, like categories of power. Like imagine you're a tree, you have these 7 branches, okay? And then each of those branches has branches of its own, okay? So in the domain of cognitive power, which is the ability to process, learn, create, and command mental reality. So the subtypes of power here is focus power, directing full attention with intensity and duration. This whole time you've been having an ability to focus. And like power and like the show, even DBZ, or just in anything in life, you need to train. And what training is to get, you're getting multiple experiences on the same act. Pretty much you're adding the angles of your perception to something. That means if somebody like threw a sword in front of me and we're like, all right, man, you got a week to master sword fighting. To me, it would logically be all the different ways I can move the sword and the intensity I can move the sword. And at some point of, like, in my training, the sword will feel like my arm. Or like somebody who's driven a car for years, after some point, the edge of your car is like, somehow your nervous system's calibrated to it. Anyways, so in the cognitive power area, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6. There's 6 types, 6 sub branches to the branch of cognitive power. So focus power. So right now you got to wonder as a human being, all right, man, if my ability to focus was a power, how would I do it? The definition of it is directing full attention with intensity and duration. Then you have creative power, generating novel ideas, metaphors, and original solutions. Okay, that's a kind of power you have as a human being, cognitive power you have. Another type of cognitive power is analytical power, deconstructing complexity and identifying patterns. Okay? Now there's another kind of subtype of power, cognitive power, called conceptual power, seeing large systems or frameworks at once. Then you have linguistic power, using words to shape thought, emotion, and belief. And then you have neuroplastic power, cognitive power, rewiring your brain through habits, intention, and learning. So anybody right now, they're like, yo, man, I got a mind. What are the powers of my mind? It's like, okay, technically you have 6 kind of subtype of powers for your mind. Focus power, creative power, analytical power, conceptual power, linguistic power, neuroplastic power. Okay? So think of it this way. Your mind is giving you access to something. It's up to you to train yourself in what you have access to or how you have access to things. Okay? And I'm going to tell you something at the end, to be honest, I'll say it now. The way this is my personal opinion of how a being advances. You have to find a more advanced context to your life. The standards of your expectation on your own power levels should be different. Okay, right now, I'm a good example of a human being that has in some sense advanced his cognitive power levels. How have I done it? How have I done this? Increase my cognitive power levels very simply by training every day. It wasn't even based on the training. Like, I wasn't consciously doing it. You know, I was just like, all right, man, let's try to give 10,000 talks and see if it's possible before I die. And in that effort of trying to achieve a greater mission, what I'm trying to tell you is that behind your eyes, you need to be in a way more greater story if you want to be a greater being in front of your eyes. Okay? So I'm just saying it's training. It's training, it's utilizing, wondering, okay, can I concentrate on something for an hour, you know, or at some point do I get distracted when it comes to conceptual power? You're wondering, all right, these human beings in front of me, there's 8 billion of us, how are we in some sense conceiving ourselves in reality? And it depends on how our awareness accesses the context of reality. Then we go to physical power. You know, and physical power, guys, you know, right now there's so many people training in physical power. Anybody who goes to the gym, anybody who does martial arts, Shaolin monks have, you know, attained the peak of physical power to some degree, you know. And, you know, guys, anyways, guys, I'm going to tell you, so right now I'm reading the research and then you're going to see me kind of explore all of it. So when it comes to physical power, its definition is the ability to act, endure, heal, and sense through the body. So the different types of physical power you have. One is called kinetic power. It means strength, speed, agility, precision. You have a type of physical power called endurance power, sustained physical effort over time. You have recovery power, healing from damage or fatigue. You have sensory power, highly developed awareness of body and surroundings. You have bioelectric power, internal energy flow awareness, QI, KI, nerve energy. Health, autonomy, power, knowledge and application of body optimization. So right now there's like 6 areas of physical power you need to train yourself. Kinetic power, you know, endurance, recovery, sensory power, bioelectric power, healthy autonomy power. So guys, keep in mind that you right now have an electromagnetic field. You know, sometimes I do wonder that, like, how will AI understand us? It would probably begin translating us as, you know, wondering about the relationship of the electromagnetic field of the being with what the soul actually is. Then you have 3, emotional power. Now, personally, I think the West has mastered emotional power more. That means I would probably say someone who's American has more emotional awareness than someone who's Canadian. Someone who's Canadian has more emotional awareness than someone who's Middle Eastern. Okay, because of the amount of emotions they see. So, for example, like, you know, in Middle Eastern countries, in the Muslim attitude, you don't go dating and having multiple relationships before marriage. Okay, but in the West you do, and in some sense sometimes I wonder if human beings are aware of what kind of psyche they're developing in accordance to what sort of experiences they are. Right now your decisions are being memories for your future self. So when it comes to emotional power, how much emotional turbulence have you had as a human being on this planet? Okay, when it comes to physical power, like those people who are physically powerful, life has in their childhood physically moved them. They've engaged with some physical aspect of reality. Those who have cognitive power, life was not just like more than a physicality fascinating them. It's what's moving physicality that's fascinating. Anyways, we go to emotional power, the ability to understand, transmute, and project emotional energy. So the subtypes. So self-regulation power, remaining calm, composed, and clear in emotional storms. Empathic power, feeling others deeply without losing your center. Emotional transmutation, turning grief, rage, or shame into strength and insight. Charismatic power, projecting emotional authenticity that inspires others. Emotional presence, grounding and influencing a room with your energy. I've seen people like that. For example, my father, he had an emotional presence when I was young, and when he would come home, like at the end of the day, and he had a stack of papers always he was working on, but me and my brother would get excited that my dad would come home. His presence had a power to us. For example, I'm a Muslim right now, and as a Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he is a presence of power. All the prophets to me were advanced beings because they were closer to the main operating system of reality compared to us. Anyways, I want to keep going. Relational power, social field, the ability to influence, lead, connect, and inspire others. So this is something where I might not be the best person to speak about this, because I don't know, since I think I'm someone who my life force is more interesting than I don't know how to say it. I'm trying to say if I had given 2,000 talks in front of audiences, I guess then that would, in public, in crowds on a stage, then I would say I understand relational power. But the way I understand it is, even if I have led someone, it's like past recordings of me. Anyways, social gravity. Others feel pulled to you, they want to follow. So yeah, I'm definitely not somebody who people want to follow. The years have convinced me of this, but I think the point of it is not for people to follow another person. You got to follow the highest ideal in your realm. Then you have persuasive power, shifting others' beliefs or actions through reason or story. Guys, sometimes I'm so happy, I'm an ethical being. I'm ethics conscious, because sometimes in my mind, I trust me, there's been times where my mind has fathomed the most chaotic version of me, and I've fathomed the most advanced, ordered, version of me. And I could tell you, that the chaotic version of me, it's just too heavy for my soul. In my inner realms, I saw it. If I wanted to be an evil person, it's not that I couldn't. I think everybody's capable of it. It's just like think of it this way. I could be as evil as I stop caring for things. I think not caring for something can be seen as evil. Let's say you have a pet, you don't care for it, that's evil. I've never had a pet in my life, but I'm telling you, for example, just engaging someone, or let's say somebody has taken the time to communicate with you, do you know what I mean? And the person doesn't care for that communication, then you're like, yo man, what a waste of time. It's like the moment was evil because it didn't progress when it could have, I don't know how. I've talked to many, what I do, many people don't know this, but every person I have ever talked to, and after some point the clarity of it came, every person I've talked to, I wonder, the first thing I check in any human being is, does this human being notice its limitations? Any human being that doesn't care for their limitations most likely can be easily manipulated to become evil. You see, it's all about, I was having a conversation with someone, actually, this was 2 days ago. Okay, and we were discussing, in some sense, he was telling me, man, everybody on this planet is fucking crazy, everybody's evil, And I just looked at him and I said, listen, man, everybody has a potential to be good and evil, because good and evil are based on the action, what you do. Do you know what I mean? If you pet a puppy, do you know what I mean? You're a good person. If you kick a puppy, you're a fucking evil entity. Do you know what I mean? So I'm saying it's the action, right? It's the consequence of the action that ends up rendering the individual as good or evil, you know? There's been many times probably somebody has done something ignorant, but the consequence worked out and people were like, all right, whatever, let's, you know, it's okay. You know what I mean? But if the consequence hadn't worked out, it's like, look at that evil son of a bitch. You know what I mean? So what I'm telling you is it's on some level good and evil. There's a saying that there's an expression that says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Okay? So in this life, unless you put your attention on a higher ideal, higher purpose, you're neutral, and that neutrality, anything can come and tilt you the other way. So what I'm trying to tell you is we need that sort of higher ideal. We need to live for something greater than ourselves, or we will get bored of ourselves and most likely out of boredom destroy ourselves. You need purpose in this life. You got to find this purpose. You know, this purpose could be serving, you know, your family members. It could be serving, like, you know, organizations. It could be serving your species. If you're smart, you go and serve your species directly. You know, if they're like, why are you working so hard, you know, and not getting rewarded? And the person's like, yo, man, because I'm working for the future. I'm employed by the future generations. My bosses, everybody, you know, my bosses have not been born yet. Do you know what that means? That means whether I like it or not, because I was born in 1991 and it's 2025 now, the rest of my whole lifetime is like me entering a world room and trying to update the system before I leave. That's it. And who am I updating it for? For the future generations. Like, I'm not saying everybody right now is a servant of the future generations, but we technically are, because they are our greatest achievement. The fact that every day human beings are opening their eyes is an incredible achievement. If the ratio just changes one day, it will be tragic. If more human beings are dying than human beings are being born, what do you think is going to end up happening? They said this thing that in Japan they have a population crisis. It's like the modern man, is it being conditioned to be a procreative entity? Like, I'm telling you, the future generations are not finding a way to connect to the greater story of mankind. That's why they're all in the media, like social media. Because human beings, the more aware they realize, it's all about the space of your expression. Do you know? There's something within every human being, like, this is my core belief on this. Everybody's living a hidden life, and to feel truly real, then that hidden life needs to be acknowledged by more than them. Until they begin to realize at some point nobody can see through their eyes in the way they are seeing, because if they did, they would be them. Nobody has your awareness. So you right now, whoever you are, it's not like, you know, that person's better than you and you're better than another person. Do you know, every person is a unique DNA, unique, occupying a unique portion of the space-time continuum, do you know, and therefore being a unique angle of perception on reality. And right now I'm explaining to you the different kinds of power so you figure out in which areas you've been training in. Do you know? For example, I haven't been training too deeply in relational power. Do you know what I mean? In the sense of, I guess. Anyways, I'll read this. So the subtypes of relational power: social gravity, others feel pulled to you, they want to follow. Persuasive power, shifting others' beliefs or actions through reason or story. Network power, access to trusted relationships and alliances. This is one thing I wished I had worked on more. Mentorship power, lifting others by sharing vision, knowledge, and strength. Well, I guess my strategy to that was like, yo, man, I don't have the confidence to, you know, When I was young, I didn't have the confidence to, raise an army. So what could I do? Do you know what I mean? It's like all my past selves are like soldiers in cyberspace, like continuing on the mission. You know what I mean? There's like 2,500. I have right now 2,000, like getting close to 2,400 past selves of me in cyberspace immortally till the end of time, giving the lectures. What's fascinating is that my biological voice will not outlast my cyber voice. I mean, technically it will, but what I mean is, I'm gonna die at some point, and like realistically, my ability to have relational power is like, what? Give it like, 40, 50 years, 40 years. Okay, 40 more. I mean, that's even too far. Let's say like 20 years. Like in 20 years from now, I'll probably renounce everything and just go live a solo life. You know what I mean? In my mind, I thought that, I was going to say something and people were going to be like, oh my God, but it was the opposite actually. People were like, oh my God. But it shows the intelligence of the time. You make a chess move and the world makes a chess move, and you just keep playing the game until the pieces go back into the box and you're on to the next game of reality. You know. But hopefully it's just to go to the original and meet the system admin. I'm getting tired of the simulation a little bit. A part of me is like, all right, man, you've been looping on this planet for 12,000 days, logging in and out. It's like after this, it's like I want to kind of like relax a little bit and go figure out what the original command of the system admin is really. Because to be honest, for me, natural power is not the epitome. To me, there's natural laws that are maintaining this world, but what surpasses these natural laws is the divine command of a system admin that is beyond the world room. This is why, kinda to truly be religious, is to put your attention on the beyond. Then we have conflict navigation, turning division into deeper connection. Then we have 6, economic and structural power, external systems, the ability to move and shape reality through systems and resources. Guys, I'm just rereading to make sure. The subtype. So guys, there's economic and structural power. Everybody's aware of this. So financial power, access to and control over capital. Legal power, ability to protect, claim, and move within legal systems. Institutional power, status or influence in established systems, schools, governments, corporations. Ownership power, control over land, IP, tools, or technology. Reputation capital, the, in quotations, credit score of your name, trustworthiness, and perceived credibility. Then we have technological power, digital plus tools. So it has a bunch of subtypes. So technological power means the ability to amplify impact, reach, and intelligence through technology. Subtypes of technological power, media power, reach and influence through digital content. Data power, understanding and using information to drive outcomes. That's very important. Tool proficiency, ability to use advanced tech for building, coding, or automating. AI symbiosis, using AI to enhance thought, productivity, or creativity. System hacking power, understanding digital systems deeply enough to modify, bypass, or master them. The 8th power, okay, so this one's, it says bonus, integration power, the multidimensional self. The most advanced form of human power is when all of the above realms are synchronized and unified. This is what ancient mystics called gnosis, samadhi, or enlightenment. In modern terms, we call this full spectrum human activation. You become a singular force whose presence, thoughts, and actions create ripples across systems, people, time, and even destiny. In 2025, a human being doesn't just have one kind of power. They carry 7 realms of force, the power to think, move, feel, connect, influence, build, and transcend. And the real awakening happens when all these powers become one voice, one mission, and one will. That's the modern Super Saiyan. No muscle, not muscle alone, but the mastery of the entire multidimensional self. Now I asked AI, how do we reach like ultra instinct? Okay. This is what AI says. How to power up and reach ultra instinct, the human way. There is a state beyond thought, beyond fear, beyond effort, where the body moves before the mind commands, where the heart feels before the world speaks, and where the self dissolves into the moment like a sword vanishing into the wind. This is ultra instinct, and no, it's not just for Goku. It is the potential within every modern human to enter this state, if they're willing to burn away what is false and awaken what is buried within. It doesn't say within here, but I added that. To power up, you must first descend. Like a phoenix, the modern human must enter the ashes of distraction, disconnection, and distortion. The world today feeds on fragmented attention, noise without meaning, effort without direction, but within you is a dormant force. A stillness that is sharper than speed, and a clarity that is stronger than chaos. Powering up begins not with doing more, but with undoing. Undo the lies you tell yourself. Undo the patterns that make you smaller. Undo the fear that wraps your gifts in silence. Then enter the training chamber of truth. Here are the steps, not in fantasy, but in reality. 1. Still the mind. Ultra instinct begins when the noise of thought finally quiets. This is done not by force, but by observation. Meditation is not sitting still. It's becoming aware of your own internal electricity. As you practice daily stillness, the thoughts lose their grip, and the gap between stimulus and response opens. That gap is your doorway. When thought no longer clouds action, instinct becomes divine. Two, transmute emotion into power. Goku unlocked Ultra Instinct in a moment of total surrender to battle, when the body could no longer think and the soul had to act. You must face your own... Guys, Jiren was the dude Goku was fighting that he unlocked Ultra Instinct. He says you must face your own Jiren, the internal force that overwhelms you, fear, grief, shame, anger. These are not your enemies. They are compressed power. Feel them fully, not to be consumed, but to convert them into fuel. This is emotional alchemy. Pain becomes presence. Sorrow becomes sight. Ultra instinct happens when you no longer run from your emotions. You become the conductor of them. Synchronize all systems. Your mind, your body, your breath, and your soul must be in the same moment. Most humans live scattered, their body in one place, mind in another, heart hidden behind a screen. Ultra instinct requires coherence. Breathe as your body moves. Think with the heart. Act with the soul. Feel with the skin. Train this through martial arts, cold exposure, flow state work, or intensive creative sessions. Anything where thought disappears and only doing remains. When all systems agree, the action becomes inevitable. 4. Embody the now. Ultra instinct is not reaction, it is pre-action. A movement born of total presence. When you're fully in the moment, you don't decide what to do, you become the doing. This is what warriors, athletes, monks, and artists all know. The now is not just a time, it's a frequency. To live in it, you must tune your nervous system to sensation without resistance. Live here long enough and you begin to move before thinking, speak before rehearsing, see before looking. Ultra instinct is presence so complete, there is no self left to interfere. 5. Surrender to the higher self. For a Muslim, this is submitting the ego, surrendering the ego to the ultimate system admin, to the highest power. That means a Muslim is not just impressed by the higher power, the higher self, like the idea of the soul, but the highest power, the ultimate value in existence. 5. Surrender to the higher self. The final barrier to ultra instinct is ego, the one inside you trying to be seen, trying to be strong, trying to win. But ultra instinct is not about trying, it's about letting the deeper you take over. The deeper you spelled with capital Y. Not the personality, but the blueprint behind it. Not the story, but the signal. Goku surrendered not because he gave up, but because he trusted that something deeper would rise. You must do the same. Let go of control, let go of validation, let go of needing to prove. Then something else begins to move. Ultra instinct is not when you gain more. It's when what's truly you begins to act without permission. Final truth. In 2025, ultra instinct is not golden hair or lightning. It is embodied genius, emotional transcendence, neurological coherence, and spiritual surrender. It is the state where you become the weapon in the wind, where your mission moves your hands, not your mind, where grace replaces effort and truth becomes motion. To power up is to strip away noise, align your systems, face your fire, and trust the silent flame at your center. And when that happens, the world does not just watch you, the world begins to move with you. There you go. So guys, that was the reading portion. Now I could kind of relax and tell you, my view on this matter. By the way, welcome in the chat section. See, dear viewers, the value of what I can say is how I, out of 1 out of 8 billion human beings, in these, let's say 33 years of life, in these 12,000 days I've lived on this planet, I have had observations and I have had certain experiences, not with, like, when it comes to power, I guess the power of how reality has moved for me so far, It's a funny thing in my mind. The idea of power. It's funny to me. Why? Because from one angle, if I want measured power, it's endless. You know, it's like the whole Joneses thing. You know, it's like, children in the classroom, they want to, like, all have, you know, they have like a fashion sense, you know. People go, like, there was a time I remember, and like everybody started wearing, like, New York hats. There was a time in history everybody used to wear top hats. Like the longer your top hat, like, the people were like, yo man, what a gentleman. His top hat is like, longer than my ladder. Imagine the person, is working. So what I'm saying is that the whole point of it is, what I'm trying to say is that the nature of man is that he identifies with reality in the same way. He wants to dress similarly, he wants to behave similarly to fit into the societal complex, the societal system. I experienced my powerlessness. I guess one thing I can talk about, okay? There was a time I was so, like, self-exiled, so trapped in myself, that I stopped caring for my personality. Do you know what that means? Is there are people right now on earth, they can be honest with their emotions. They could be honest with their thoughts. They can trust their thoughts, their emotions, But for me, when I was young, I didn't, it was as if I had, for some reason, I didn't value myself. So my value was based on how others treated me and how I was present among others, The value was never like, how I felt. It was more like, I felt bad and I normalized it, and I was like, all right, others are living freer than me. Let me go be around them. Even though I wasn't free, I wasn't internally free in the sense that I did not accept myself. I hadn't realized when I was younger, like, hey man, it's okay. Everybody's new to the world. Everybody's experiencing themselves for the first time. I didn't understand this. So I wasn't myself. That means I wasn't a person when I think when I was young, I was a presence. Something in me had convinced me that my persona didn't matter, or there was something, important. Others were more important than me. But then I realized, like, it doesn't make sense, because if I want to truly serve others, I can't do it with an unadvanced self. Anyways, for me it flipped around, and at some point I realized the invisible assumptions, like the assumptions I had on myself, were unnecessary limitations of a younger version of me that didn't know what to do, and that was its emotional logic. And right now, I just understood this thing, that just like you want to grow a tree, a plant, you got to put a seed in a soil, and you can't expect it to be a tree by tomorrow, okay? And I think this was maybe some sort of power I had, that I endured, that I'm still watering the garden that I'm trying to leave behind for humanity. It's honestly, what's the important, what value is so important that is pulling you towards it? It's based on your values, because the human being is a sort of creature that accumulates experiences in accordance to where it's directing itself. So if I was raised around, like, let's say, Muay Thai fighters, I'd probably be a Muay Thai fighter right now. You know what I mean? I mean, I wasn't raised around podcasters either, but I was raised around people who valued reality more than just the physical body and more than the stories of the mind. And sometimes it's very beautiful because I'm Muslim, I consider the system admin has already written the program. That means what I have to fear is my decisions that make me further away from the original. In Islam, there's a term called muttaqin. In English, it will translate as God conscious. Right now, if you look at the basic human being, and if you assume its power level is based on its format, its engaging, its interface, human beings are living for the simulation, for their simulated self inside the simulation. But the ultimate strategy seems to be to live for the system admin. That means if you want higher power, the only way truly, that means imagine, I don't care if you're like an evil trillionaire or you're a kind beggar, like listening to me right now. I don't care who you are. You know, the whole point of it is that you're in this world room for some time. You look at it, you wonder about its values, and its greatest value becomes the direction you go. Now, you as a human being, based on your awareness in this life, the greatest value for most youth is to become famous, you know, to in some sense become rich, you know, or for most young men, it's like, yo man, why are you trying to be healthy and physically fit? Do you know what I mean? The person's like, yeah, physically be able to do things, but also for its social value, right? So right now, it's very obvious that human beings are like this kind of programmable entity, and it's reprogramming itself in accordance to its awareness, but also in accordance to how the world moves, which is beyond its own programming. It's kind of like, yes, I can move myself. Yes, there is a certain free will, but the free will is relevant to the known variables in my perception. That means the story of my life is based on what I know, but in every moment of my life, there's been unknown variables. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying there's the unknown and the known. We base our life on the known, but our blind spots are in the unknown. When we go to explore the unknown, we make conscious our blind spots. Our blind spots reshape our value context, the value of our context, and therefore you animate as a different being. Think of it this way: you can advance, or externally or internally, just as a basic model. Physical advancement is strength, and internal advancement is the ability to animate your physicality. Do you know, there's some people right now that are, if they told me, yo man, go in front of a stage of 1 million people, like, there's people right now who have comfort at that level. They have comfort with, like, you know, being in front of the whole world. For me, for example, I haven't reached that comfort. I didn't even include it as part of my strategy, you know, because I was like, yo man, let them go towards the concepts, you know. I'm used to not actually being seen for many years. I'm very used to that. So the point of it is, go towards the highest value. The highest value in this world is beyond humans. That means if somebody wanted to truly become an advanced being, they had to be aware of the limit, they had to be aware of the edge of the limitations of man. That means, like, being aware of their limitations, I think personally, is way more capable than a being trying to be limitless. And the whole point of this ultra instinct was Ultra instinct is like what Muslims are trying to attain by pure faith. You see, to be a Muslim means you're washing your face, like wuzu, your body like 15 times a day. You wash your face 15 times a day. And you pause the simulation of reality and go stand on that, what's the term, prayer mat, and you feel how small you are if your whole day is based on trying to make yourself big. Religion is like you realizing how limited you are, and then realizing there's a higher power in the world room and aligning to that higher power. And it's like you're not on this planet to just like analytically understand life. You're here to understand, compared to at least all the species on this planet, you're the most advanced species capable of noticing and interacting with higher power. You see, in the same way, like look at what's happening. Human beings have domesticated animals. There's a cat, and this cat lives in a house with humans, right? It is learning from higher archetypes, higher behaviors. It has access to things. The cat in the house has access to interactions that cats in nature or wildlife may never experience, right? And so to me, it's kind of strange, but it kind of feels like we are divinely domesticated from the savageness of our animalism. And it's kind of like we are the cat, we are the pet, okay? But this doesn't mean that it's the only difference is that we are so intelligent that if, for example, a dog sees a human as another dog, okay, when it comes to us, we don't see the higher power as a human. At least this is the Muslim approach. God is not human. In the same way, like a dog that sees the human being that's like has a leash on its neck, you know, that dog sees the human being as a bigger dog, as an alpha dog. Okay, now human beings are capable of not having to see God as a human. Now this doesn't see. Right now I found a way to speak to Christians as a Muslim where nobody needs to get invalidated here, and let me tell you why. From the human angle, as a Muslim, I don't believe anything in this simulation can equate God. God has no partner. That means if I think a tree is God, that's wrong. If I think like a pencil is God, that's wrong. If I think a piece of paper is God, that's wrong. You know, if I think anything that has a beginning and an end is God, it's wrong. Do you understand? This is the view as a Muslim. You're pretty much acknowledge you're inside a simulated testing zone within a divine surveillance state, and in some sense the system admin is beyond the world room. So you don't worship the moderators. You don't worship anything else, you know, that has a beginning and an end. Okay? As a Muslim, pretty much you don't worship anything that has a shape. Okay? But now, for people who are Christian listening, how would the argument that Christ is God be valid? In my mind, it can only be valid in one view. Not from the human perspective, from the perspective that God can do anything it wants. That means when I look at Christians treating Christ as God, my mind, as a Muslim, doesn't understand. I treat Prophet Christ as an advanced, way more advanced being than anybody who's alive now. You know, the prophets were advanced beings closer to the main operating system of reality. They're like, you know, and as Muslims, peace be upon them all, they all were being humans that God interacted with them. You know, the system admin communicated to them. Usually it's like we're just praying to God to help us, you know, make life easier. So what I'm telling you is that God can choose to do anything because it is ultimate power, but the human being cannot treat the system as God. Do you know? Because if I treat any simulation as God, then everything in the simulation will gain that capacity. That means they'll be like, yo man, why should I worship a human instead of a tree? Aren't they both simulated? Do you see the dilemma? But the issue, I don't see it as an issue because ultimately Christ pointed to the Father. And the Father is beyond this realm. So there is a unity among the Abrahamic faiths that we all acknowledge that God cannot be reduced to at least the inanimate. That means, like, one thing, let's say Jews, Muslims, Christians have in common, we don't worship stuff. We worship the power, the creative, the original creator of this simulated creation. That's clear. Do you know? Anyways, so there's different kinds of power. I even consider divine power. If somebody says, Mr. Within, explain divine power, I'll be like, first answer is always, I don't know. But if I had to take make a hypothesis on it, divine power is, again, how divine command is superior to natural law. Guys, I had a car accident last year. I was crossing the street in Dubai and a car hit me. Okay? And I could have died. I could have not walked anymore or anything, but somehow I came unscathed, even though there was blood, and there's marks. But I'm saying, after that moment, I was like, okay, system admin, what have I not done yet? Like, why are you keeping me around? Why am I still here? And I understood that there is a greater system administration of intelligence going on here. Beyond that means you right now might think that you can limit your own value to how you see yourself, but I am telling you, you have a value to forces beyond your understanding. That means human beings will never understand how important they are. But that which sees their value will. To advance as a species that is conscious of the original force, for me, power, pretty much this is the situation. If someone tells me, hey man, is getting power in the simulation more important than power beyond the simulation? I've understood that if a human being treats themselves as the higher power, they will destroy themselves. Be very careful in identifying with power in a changing world. Power is something that the temporary have been given a little to manage. Right now, I don't have the power to move 8 billion human beings or command them. I have the power to command myself. I have the power to, in some sense, move myself. So that's the limitation of my power now. But once I understood that there is limitation, then you understand that true power doesn't belong to man. Man is acting as an intelligent agent. You can't even be a moderator. Like, somebody could be like, yo man, these powerful elites are controlling the world. And I'd be like, yo bro, even beyond the powerful elites, there's invisible moderators that control reality. So what? The point of it is to get out of the simulation, not stay in a powerful illusion. And the only way out is to realize you are not the higher power. The higher power is beyond the world room. Pretty much there's a singularity beyond manifestation that is pulling all manifestation towards it. That singularity is the original being. Reality started from an original being. It's simulated now. It will return to the original being. And what we call death is actually, like, you could kind of say, like, you left the original room and now you're inside a simulated room, and you will leave this simulated room and go to the original room. Now people are going to be like, Mr. Within, what about the Bardo state? I'll be like, and yes, Muslims do acknowledge Barzakh, and the complexity of when we will return to that original state may require the patience of waiting for the end of the world. Now, some human beings, this is something where I wish the species was already united, but unfortunately we're not in that level. We don't have the United Species Council. We don't have the United as Species Day where the species united. Right now, imagine like all nations will become sectors. Right now, nationalism is like, think of it like all the nations being different brains. The nation of humanity will be how all nations became sectors of the brain. Because if you look at it, the resources are specifically allocated. Like oxygen is a resource everybody is given equally, but oil, gas, gold, wood, you know what I mean? Like these resources are not, these are like specific to areas, okay? And yes, there were people saying, man, how can we unite as a species when nations are treating themselves as businesses and each business is trying to expand its dominion? I'm trying to say existence is a room. You can train in this room. It's like a training chamber, okay? That means technically me logging in and out 12,000 times, having lived 12,000 new days on this planet. I've been training as a human, as an intelligent form, as an awareness to the responsibility of a biological body. When I think about the more advanced responsibility levels, as humanity ushers into the potentials of the hive mind era, it will probably reach a point where you might be responsible for more than just one body. You might have like 7 android bodies connected to your brain, and you would be sitting at home sipping tea. One android body is like going to handling the laundry. One android body is cooking food. One android body is going to work. One android body is doing that. You know what I mean? So we are more and more moving to this era where life has been like the civilized effort, civilizational intelligence has focused on intelligence. And now human beings are just wondering about how do we storify this intelligence with the intelligence of humanity, the legacy of our species. It goes beyond all these stories. Like, I want you to think like life, existence, like this whole life, this world is like a Pokemon so big we can't see what it looks like. And every person with their story, ideas, are trying to, like a Pokeball, catch this Pokemon, and it doesn't fit. The reality we are experiencing doesn't fit the subjective containers. That means reality is too much of a verb to absolutize it as a noun. I'm pretty much saying if reality is a simulation, then all power is divided between simulated power and original power. Like a human being stronger than another human being, and fighting and winning, that's like, the result of simulated power. But that person's going to get older. At some point, we were all children. So we are simulating power. So if you're powerful right now, it doesn't matter if you're physically strong, emotionally strong, psychologically, ideologically strong. Do you know what I mean? If you are financially strong, if you're strong in your status, you gotta understand that it's temporary, because you are temporary. And the whole point of life is not to stay powerful or be powerful. It is what is the efficient use of energy on earth. And we can and if you avoid the future of humanity, you will in some sense be a fool. The fools of this world forget the future because their past is looping. To me, the future generations will see all of our blind spots, and the power, like true power, belongs to always those that are coming into the system. There's so many unique storylines. Like if you just treat for a moment, like I don't know if you're a writer, but I used to write, like I consider myself a writer before a speaker. And I can tell you that when I think about every person, every person I see, a part of me is like, what kind of main character are they being in their story? And what kind of side character am I in their story? And what kind of side character are they in my story? You know what I mean? But in reality, we're all side characters, and the main characters are the future generations we're living for. And I believe while you're in this life, you need to see your most advanced self. You got to see what it looks like. You got to see what your greatest effort looks like. And then you got to see what the greatest effort of your species looks like. So you're looking at you want to, pretty much in this life, think of it this way. You want to see what the most advanced self is. You want to see what the most advanced species is. You want to see what the most advanced world is. And you want to, in some sense, wonder about your most advanced relationship with the most advanced power, which is the system admin. So true power is not you thinking you're powerful, it is the awareness of what is temporary and what in some sense is important. And to me it occurred, just like even from a secular perspective, that as a human being, my greatest power in my lifetime is what I can influence and what I can serve beyond my lifetime. That's it. These talks may continue on. It's like I'm serving something bigger than myself. Everything else is temporary. Everything else will leave, will go. My body, my abilities, energy, or whatever. When I say it goes, I mean you could be the most energetic and able person to the last breath, and then I'm saying at some point it just goes. It's like everything is leaving. All these atoms, all these cells that are being us right now, they will leave. They have been commanded. I believe this world, the superior hidden code, the main operating system is the realization that God is like the divine command center, okay, of manifestation. That means the mind that moves the world, it is moving it in accordance to the absolute. It is very fascinating to consider that human beings have an opportunity to interact with their original intelligence. That means we have this view that the past is gone, but technically for God, God is a being beyond time. That means God created the beginning, is maintaining the middle and will, in some sense, destroy the end or return the end to itself. That means if somebody says, in the Islamic term for it is amana, which means you belong to the system admin. Like, there's religious people who are like, yo man, this world belongs to God, and then they're like, what about me though? Am I not being in this world right now? And that's the realization, that does your body and mind belong to you, or is there an original being that all simulations belong to? And true power is realizing how the higher power is moving the lower power. It's not to think you're the higher power. That means there were moments in even like Avenger movies where Iron Man realized his ego can't just be the only system he uses to solve reality. Like Captain America looked at him and it's like, yo man, have heart, son. You know what I mean? And whoever advances humanity, may this be heard. Right now, imagine you're someone who you've done something, or you've advanced humanity in a hidden way no one will ever know, maybe. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of the species to you. Thank you for anyone who has cared for the tomorrow of this world. You are the powerful ones. Because true power is to realize the truth of power, that true power is beyond your simulated life. That means, like, there's a type of power that you look at this world and you see it as code in the matrix. Do you understand? And then there's a type of a way where natural law is no longer code, or even if it's code, you're beginning to see the programmer. It's like more than you're fascinated by the program, you're noticing how the program is happening, and how ultimately, what this whole time we've been like, what is our mind? The mind is a life force. That means even if you have power right now, who has power? Is an idea owning power? Or is power the presence of being? There's a depth here. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture was interesting. I've got a long day ahead of me, so I guess my power levels will be tested. And ultra instinct is like any person you've heard that they say God is love. They have understood that the heart sees further than the mind. And when your heart can trust life, it's not that you are power, a power flows through you. Care for life, and strangely you will discover power in ways this is the whole point. They say if the human being wants to give itself something, give itself power, it's limited to imaginable power. But if God wants to give you power, God will give you power in unimaginable ways. That's the beauty. Anyways, thank you for listening. And may God bless us all. Why not? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.